Good evening. This is Defacto Review, a weekly analysis of Mongolia's latest political, economic, and social issues by economist and columnist Mr. Jarasang.
Good evening.
And I'll be your host, Tikshirult. This week we're discussing the second public hearing for the development bank cases, the government's declaration of the year 2023 as the year to fight corruption, and the exchange rate between the US dollar and the Mongolian Turk. So this week, the second public hearing for the development bank cases was held at the government palace, and they called a lot of testimonials and had discussed the loans that were granted by the development bank and the completion of the projects that these loans were given out to. So what were your biggest takeaways from this week's public hearing?
Well, as we have discussed last time about the first hearing, there are total three hearings. Second one just completed for 3 days. It took 3 days to complete it. And it discussed, if the first one discussed about the individual loan to a private company, etc., this one is talked about the projects that is financed by the Development Bank of Mongolia, which is supposed to be paid from the state budget later on. So it was quite lion shares of the all total loan of this Development Bank of Mongolia, which half of which is classified as a bad loan. In spite of this classification, the Mongolian government had tried their best, and many loan is paid. Total 1.8 trillion MNT loan was regarded as bad, but more than 1 trillion is paid back somehow. So I think also it's thanks to this kind of hearings. And this time they discussed particular large projects, for example. They have called as witness former President Batolga, former ministers, former prime ministers, and in that sense it was, though half of the witnesses are not shown up. So it means that they need to make some enforcement for them to come to this parliament hearing, which is a very important step, and I think it's new mechanism of our public management. And those who did not come should have some responsibility. So I have some kind of 5 observations on what had happened during these 3 days of hearing. First is state management failure. Mongolian government, public management is really in bad shape. If you take this Drucker circle of management, planning, doing, checking, and acting. This third segment of the cycle, which is monitoring, is so in bad shape because all these projects have been checked, audited many times by international auditors, domestic auditors, the bank itself auditors. But somehow the realization checking didn't work well. And Development Bank of Mongolia, since it's government bank, it originally was run by or responsibility of the Minister of Economics, which was abolished or restructured as soon as the government had changed it. Then this DBM was under cabinet secretary, which is not professional agency to run this kind of bank. Then they have decided to move under Minister of Finance. And according to this hearing, some cases, that Minister of Finance was not working properly. That's the private take, how I see. Even more than that time Minister Huril Batar, who was finance minister, is now kind of misinforming. Looks like misinforming. Why? Because he said that as soon as the DBM came to under the Ministry of Finance, they have got paid 624 billion MNT loan paid back. That's what he said. And he said that the certain creditors, certain borrowers were transferred to the court, he said. But it turned out what he was saying in two cases at least are wrong. One, QSC case. That file went to court, according to the minister. It went on May 7th on 2020, but actually it went to the court way before. It was November 20th of 2019 under completely different CEO of the development bank. The same story with Mongol Mach Impex, Mongol Mach Expo. He said that it is the file went to court on June 2nd, 2020. Actually, it went December 20th, 2019. So earlier. So some regard it misinforming the case. My second observation is there's no consistency of the development policy in the country, because it's such a big project. Big projects are they got finance from the Development Bank of Mongolia, and when on the halfway, they suddenly stopped financing. And now who is responsible for that failure? And many companies are in such situation. They started big projects, got financing partially, and they did not receive the second one, and the project stopped forever. So there is no talk about who will take responsibility for that. Certainly not the company. Or at least they need to share, which is not the case. It was the same case with Sanshan industrial complex. The ex-president Batulga was in charge of that complex, and he said that we made the railroad connected, and we made the local infrastructure already in the place now, and it's now we need to run further, not to stop or cancel the project. And he was very articulate in his argument in front of this hearing, very well. The other minister, former minister Ansuk, who was the road and transportation minister, he was talking about the new railway projects. And what surprised me was he said that, now we Mongolia made the railways to Chinese border, two new ones at least, and they are not connected with Chinese. And now they're only talking about the connecting points. And that Minister Kansuk said, look, there was no conversation from the beginning about the connecting points. What is this? So my third observation was, in general, government minister incompetence. They lack education, skills. And they are working for these projects like at the level of intuition, emotion, not clear estimation, the evaluation of feasibility. It's really worrying factor. But I'm not surprised because only political party members went to this kind of work, ministerial and executive work, because they need to be. Good thing is now they started to select the people. The fourth thing is integrity of the decision makers. How come that one of these companies I talked belongs to sister of mother, son, son of a mother of, for example, Mr. Erden, who is the head of the Democratic Party? Or how come that your advisor is selecting own company for implementing a tender? In case of, for example, Minister Batulga, ex-President Batulga. So this kind of complete disintegrity of the people who are making decisions. My fifth observation, and last one, is there are serious foreign factors from China and Russia. Why? Concerning the gauge of railways, one Russians are broader, China wider, China narrower. Every railways coming from Mongolia to China, except the main international corridor now, Zamingut, the remaining are not international roads. It's just bilateral, two countries' road. And China has a policy that we will not accept another gauge, different gauge railways, except the international rail corridors. Mm-hmm. So these two are not international corridor, and maybe that's the reason why the Chinese are not active to connect, not enthusiastic, in spite of their all coming frequency, yes, but they're not doing that.
Mm-hmm. So this case has touched on a lot of corruption. It's uncovered a lot of corruption that was going on within the development bank. And the government has declared the year 2023 as the year to fight corruption. And Mr. Nyambatra, who's the Minister of Justice, has introduced a new plan which has 5 steps to fight corruption. So in Mongolian, all the words, the key words for this plan, the steps are the letter sh or sh. But in short, the words are whistleblowing, sweeping, a bird as in like flying, and transferring, and glass, so meaning transparency. So could you please dive into these 5 steps that the government has planned to combat corruption?
It's very on time, I think, on time action. Mm-hmm. 2023 is a full one only last year for this government to fight or to complete their fight, which they have already started, only on one full year. Mm-hmm. So they have announced this year to combat the corruption year. And as you said, the 5 sh or sh. First is about whistleblowing, shugul in Mongolian. Yes, they will. They said in this program, in this first ish, they say that we will adopt. This ruling party will adopt a law protecting whistleblower and investigative journalists, which are long time missing, pending. People were demanding it for quite some time, and hopefully they will do it now. Second, sh or shur. I would translate it as a broom. Mm-hmm. Broom is those officials who cannot justify their very high income. They will be kind of fired from the public jobs, and also if a public officer who was never doing business before now living in very high expensive real estate houses and driving very expensive cars, they will be also fired from their positions as soon as they cannot justify, cannot explain where the whole income comes. Mm-hmm. So it is a way of fighting corruption without violating human rights. Very evident, very clear evidence gives that opportunity. The third sh, or shovu, or bird in English, it is about bringing back those running away corruptionists, if I would say. Mm-hmm. And there are several running away from the country, and they are existing and living somewhere. And now with the related proper agencies, and on the basis of a law, if necessary, they will make a new agreement or agreement to mutual enforcement of law, which we have with many countries.
So is that an agreement for extradition?
Extradition of the criminals. Mm-hmm. So the fourth shiljulich, or it's a returning back assets. Mm-hmm. Those assets obtained with corruption money which are many. And so far, Mongolia, from the Cayman Islands, London, New York, several real estates were taken back or sold there and the money are coming back. And some of the money is, for example, used for one project of elderly care center, which is one nearby Ulaanbaatar city. But now it's a time, under this program they say that it's time how can we use those money, or the funds returned back from these corrupt officials. Mm-hmm. So I think it's more or less work done already started. The fifth ish or shil in Mongolian, glass. Mm-hmm. And it's very important actions, fifth ish, because it says that all nomination of executive officers of the state and local owned enterprises will be implemented this year. Basically, they will fire everybody now, and they will, on the basis of selection or tender, they will find the better positioned person, which is great because before it was from his own political parties. Say, the ruling party has 200,000 people, and what they are selecting is a very narrow, smaller pool. Mm-hmm. But now Mongolia has 1 million labor, and if they will elect 5 times more chances, which recently they have done with Irdinis Mongolia, as you remember, and they have been for less than 100 positions, jobs, there were 2,000 plus applications, and 1,000 plus have gone through interview. So they have elected, and finally some less than 100 officials to Irdinis Mongolia, which is the largest mining corporation of the country, under which there are some 30 also state-owned mining-related companies. Mm-hmm. So these are the 5-ish, and hopefully it will be successfully implemented.
So the minister himself said that looking at examples of other countries that have combated corruption, he said that first of all, the government has to take steps to fight corruption. Second, the people need to support the government in doing so. And in third, they have to have robust policies to be able to actually fight corruption. So do you think that this is a step in the right direction for the
As you see,
government?
The government of Mongolia has this enthusiasm, has this willingness to fight corruption, and to continue what they have started 2 years ago. Now, Mongolia, as ever before, fighting corruption and revealing many cases. And now we need to completely go to the end. People support it, as you said. But the third, which is the law enforcement or court or justice system, is to work as much as the people want. Here we have some questions, and hopefully with all this pressure, our court system will work from now on better than before.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on to our final topic for this week. So this past week, according to the exchange rates from Mongol Bank, the US dollar hit 3,500 Mongolian turugs this past week, which is an all-time high. Compared to the same period last year, the dollar rose by 650 turugs, which is around 22.8%. So it increased 22.8%. So economists are warning of dangers of the depreciation of the turuk, and that the dollar might go up to 4,000 MNT. So what are the dangers associated with this sudden rise of or sudden depreciation of the turuk?
We have already the danger situation of that increase of 18% year-on-year base of tugrik. Today's tugrik is 3,500, which is way higher than planning or waiting. That's true that in September, once it reached that level for a few days, and it went back down. But this time, what happened? Now the COVID restrictions, Mongolia completely free. China now also free, though the COVID is not finished completely in China. Mm-hmm. So now Mongolians go there, fly there, and more or less until China was open, the other countries were open, and for this year, Mongolians start to travel a lot. Just in Vietnam, Phu Island, there was 640 Mongolians at the same time in the hotels, because we have a charter flights, because we have cold weather here, warm weather there, and the all air pollution, etc. In particular, they were taking their children. This is one of the rush, and the other thing is that now Mongolians more traveling now for education, for medical treatment, etc. So altogether, the outflow of dollar was more active just since the beginning of the new year. Mm-hmm. And statistics show for September, our foreign trade turnover increased almost twice. And the import increased twice, 99%, import 66%, export 99%. It's mostly because our main item of export, coal, copper, gold, the prices have steadily increasing now. Mm-hmm. So that's why the income is high. And plus, Mongol Bank, since the first day of the new year, they have put money, injected $325 million to the market. So it's almost 10 million a day US dollar. And in spite of that, still the dollar rate is hiking. And state reserve is now almost 10% less than year-on-year basis. So all this them show that we are still in a position, maybe a bit more hike, but I don't think it will be substantially hike in the near future. Mm-hmm. Because as I said, the income from our export is keep increasing. Mm-hmm. If it is go up as planned, then there is a good chance we have a more inflow of US dollar than outflow.
What do you think this would mean for commercial banks? As you know, when foreign reserves are low in Mongolia, sometimes commercial banks restrict the amount of money that you can send abroad or in any transaction. Do you think that if the dollar keeps rising, that there will be restrictions, there will be new restrictions for the people?
Yeah, in fact, that's what's happening today. Now, if you want to have your own money with, say, in US dollars from whatever your other two Greeks accounts, then you need to inform a bank a day before. It is within 15,000 US dollar or 50 million MNT. Within 15 million MNT transaction, you need to inform, if it's over, inform the bank a day before. It shows the restrictions is already there. The similar thing was before the New Year as well. Then they eventually released that restrictions, and hopefully this time it will happen, and more activity comes up when the spring comes. And the other thing is now Tsagansar, the Lunar New Year, is coming next week. There is one estimation that says that Mongolians spend around $100 million US dollar for only Tsagansar. So that's another factor maybe of that devaluation of Mongolian tourists.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think should be done to at least try to keep the rate of the dollar at a steady mark at this point?
Well, it means we need to increase saving rate of US dollar so that we keep more dollar inside of the country, which they have artificially decreased the saving rate of US dollar before, and to some extent it is existing now. The other thing is to make more export of coal, copper, etc., whatever we do traditionally, but also now from this year we may have more meat, Kashmir, Kashmir now, more value-added Kashmir to be exported, because otherwise they just wash Kashmir and send to China. China is producing more value-added products there. Mm-hmm. So this year, for example, they have stopped, or they are not permitting this year export of washed Kashmir. Mm-hmm. They need to stay here, so it may be substantial changes in export. In general, we need to more deeper processing of all products we are exporting now.
Well, unfortunately, our time today has come to an end, so I'll see you next week for a review.
Thank you very much, and have a good Sagansar.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.